A rundown of questions. That's exactly what we got for our very special guest on this week's episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. He's a former USA Eagle. He hosts the Rugby Rundown along with brand new Sunday Night Rugby coming here in MLR 2026. Will Hooley joins us to talk about a hectic offseason, what to look for this upcoming year, plus so much more. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 177 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR. With you, as always, Matt Yee. I am Ryan Yee. We're going to hear from Devin, Vandy, Vanderpool in just a bit, but boy, oh boy, do we have a special episode for you this week. Special guest, like I mentioned, a man who really does it all. Former pro rugby player and USA Eagle Will Hooley is going to join the show in just a little bit. Was able to talk with him earlier about a whole range of different topics, Maddie. Very insightful conversation from a guy who's obviously been involved in the league for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, look, every chance that we have an opportunity to talk with him, it's always a great interview. It's always full of a lot of knowledge, full of a lot of good times. A bit of banter. So I'm looking forward to hearing it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Really good friend of the show, has always been great with us. And again, just a lot of insight into different components of the league, whether that's growing rugby here stateside, whether that's the new landscape we find ourselves in with the 6-team league that we have heading into MLR 2026, a whole bunch there. So make sure you stick around here as we will be able to talk with Will about all of that. But along with the interview with Will, we do have other stuff to catch up on. Again, continuing to be no shortage of signings. So we're going to have a news dump in just a sec here to talk about some of those signings, which Maddie, you mentioned
I like them.
You're continuing to wait on more and more California.
We're into the
Legion.
double digits, baby. We're into the
There
double
you go.
digits.
Looking pretty good there, and we're starting to round out a squad on that West Coast team, along with a couple other signings that did happen with some other teams as we inch on closer to now, Maddie, less than 2 months away from the start of MLR 2026, which means the start of another fantasy MLR season, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we're counting down the clocks now, and you know what? We're going to have to start prepping for the draft. It's going to be right around the corner. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. That is true.
And I did ask Will the question of who he would draft first overall
Trick
in
question.
his fantasy MLR draft. He did let me know that he did win his fantasy football league. He is a champion, a fantasy football champion.
Okay.
So,
Well. I just want him to know that whoever he chose, whoever the listeners are going to see that he chose, just know that Will Hooley wants that guy to have the worst season possible.
The TFR curse. I was thinking about that as I asked the question. I was like, does the TFR curse, which for those of you who are listening in for the first time, is historically every single guy that we have thought, every single player that we have predicted to be the number one overall fantasy MLR player has notoriously dropped off and not been that. I don't know if that extends to Will. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he doesn't apply in that situation, but who knows? We'll find out here in this upcoming season. But
not if that guy gets picked first, then it does extend to him.
I guess so. So we'll see. Stick around to find out who he chose, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. But all that will be coming up in just a sec. Before we do, if you aren't already, follow us at the Fantasy Ruckers. Handles up above if you're watching on the YouTube video, down below in the description if you're listening on the pod, at the Fantasy Ruckers, X, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Like, subscribe here on the YouTube channel as well, or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. It helps support the show and helps us a long way, along with giving you fresh and weekly content every single week to break down the latest that happens in MLR and by extent the latest in fantasy MLR, which we couldn't be more excited for.
Heard it here first. Weekly content every week.
Weekly content. There you go. And we also do have a Discord community that you can join as well. Fun folks over there who love to chat, rugby, MLR, all that good stuff with there. And then also make sure you check out thefantasyruckers.com, the official platform for Fantasy MLR here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. All right, Maddie, no time to waste. Let's get right into the news.
News dump.
All right, time for an episode 177 of a TFR news dump, and there are a handful of signings to go over here, and I think we must start off with Maddie, the team that seems to trying to get into your good books, into your good graces, by announcing do you want to call it a flurry of signings over the course of the week? I don't know,
but looking at these signings, I feel like we almost spoke these into existence last week.
We did have a feeling that some of these signings were going to happen, heard through the grapevine as well, and confirmations of some of those. And we are talking about the California Legion. I do have a question, Maddie, for you after we go through these signings to see whether or not a prediction you made a couple episodes back still sticks, even with these signings. But anyways, let's get right to it. California Legion signing 4 notable guys. We'll start off with Billy Meeks is signing with the California Legion, obviously with RFCLA. Last time has been with the LA Guiltinis, has been with the Chicago Hounds.
Proud coffee shop owner.
There you go. And kind of giving us a feeling that he was going to be sticking out there on the West Coast. Joining, though, Billy Meeks is a couple of other RFCLA former players. Ed Timpson signing with the California Legion. Ben Sugars signing with the California Legion.
We talked about this one.
Also add Cash Maluia signing with the Legion as well. He played for San Diego last year. So that's 4 signings now with the California Legion this past week, joining a handful of others to now bring that, total up to 10 players now, I believe?
I said double digits, but I did not check my math, so I'm really hoping that it is double digits.
I'll have to double check that.
But look, I mean, these are the staple guys that we wanted to see back for this team, right? So you especially think about the fact of getting Ben Sugars back. We talked about him last week about how effective he was in the front row. It will be interesting to understand how he works in with Joe Taufete. So we'll see how that kind of goes. But for me, yes, Billy Meeks is great. And it's great to see him back. I think for me, the big one is Ed Timpson. Ed Timpson was an absolute menace when he was on the field. And just simply the way that they play allows for him to have a lot of freedom to run with the ball, to be incredibly involved with the game. We saw that last year with LA, and we know with the coach moving over from RFCLA, that is going to be very much the same, or we can expect very much the same. So yeah, I love the Ed Timpson signing. Happy to see Billy Meeks back, and love the Ben Sugar signing. So yeah, good on all fronts.
Yeah, Matt alluding to that fast-paced Stephen Hoyles offense that we did see with RFCLA that we can only imagine will be transitioning over to the California Legion. From a fantasy perspective, Billy Meeks was the leading fantasy point scorer on RFCLA last season, 166.4 fantasy points. Was a guy that was just very dependable for you, scoring a high of 18.7 in round 14, but really hovering around that double-digit mark. Didn't get you really anything lower than 8 points all season long. So just very dependable.
And I think I'll say is that in order to run that type of offense, Billy Meeks has to be at the center of it. Right. So the way that he plays, he is getting you go forward ball. He's getting you front foot ball in order for Gonzalo Butrano to get the ball out quick and move it to the edge. So yeah, love to see that he's back. And honestly, at this point, he's a vet. He's a face of the league. Almost similar to the likes of Will Hooley, except Billy Meeks still play.
Yeah, and we did see the ceiling, right, of what Billy Meeks can do, right, in terms of the fantasy impact he can have. Again, I think the sky's the limit for him to do, and I really do think that 166.4, despite leading RFCLA last season, really is around his floor in terms of the production that he can have. I think especially if they're able to just settle in, have some, even supplement that with more talent around him. Obviously, a lot of returning RFCLA guys, in addition to some of these guys that we're going to see who were with the Legion last year, like
Hmm.
Christian Poitevin, like some of these other guys. I think it is going to be interesting. And again, this guy is a guy that can score definitely higher than 18.7, which was his high last year, which I do think can be even higher this year. And again, Ed Timpson, you mentioned it, Maddie, the third highest scorer on RFCLA, 142.6 fantasy points. He was really one of our sleepers of the year, to be honest. Not really on the map for many people heading into the year. But by the end of it, he was a guy that was a staple for a lot of lineups. And again,
Yeah.
another dude that was just really hovering around that double digit mark and a tackle machine. I mean, twice in this season hitting the 20 plus tackle mark in both rounds 11 and rounds 13. And really, when he was playing solid amount of minutes, was easily getting you double digit tackles each and every week, which lent to a pretty solid floor for Ed
Hmm.
Timpson for that. And again, I think with the fast paced offense that Stephen Hoyles will run, Ben Sugars is always a nice play there. Now it's going to be interesting because you got now Ben Sugars and Joe Tofete on that team now to see how that hooker responsibility does get split up may limit that fantasy value, but whoever is starting for California, I think is going to be a very, very solid starter for you for that. It's just going to be the question on who you can rely on a week in and week out basis.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay, so let's now round it out with some of the other signings. Old Glory DC was the second busiest team here. I should say tied for the second busiest. Robinson is
Love that
joining Old
signing.
Glory DC. Solid signing for them. Again, we were asking this question, I believe, last episode, Maddie, on who Old Glory DC was going to turn to for those hooker responsibilities. They did recently sign Kirby Myhill, but now you add Connor Robinson, who obviously did a great job with Anthem Rugby Carolina last season. It really does feel like it is his job to lose again. Probably a split time between him and Kirby Myhill, but Connor Robinson was very, very effective last season.
Yeah, I mean, look, Connor Robinson was a great, like when Anthem was doing well, Connor Robinson was doing well as well. So um I think you love to see that. You love to see that signing. You love to see him kind of moving into um a different role. And yeah, you can see here, like early on in the year when again Anthem was doing fairly well, he was getting the 10 points that you were looking for out of the hooker position. Yeah, you definitely have to be conscious of the fact that he is moving into a room where he's going to have to share time, but it's not anything that we see that's new from the front row, especially from the hooker position. So it's just a matter of how they split that and what happens there. So, yeah, great
And I
signing
do,
for
I
Old
do, I
DC.
do feel that it is mitigated by the fact that one, he was on an Anthem Rugby Carolina team that wasn't necessarily scoring a whole
Yeah, well,
bunch with
that's
their
why
front pack.
exactly. That's why I'm saying like early in the year when when we thought Anthem was going to be good, he was putting those 10 points up. And with an Old Glory DC side that really aims to be as average as possible, you can definitely see that coming up for sure.
Shots fired. But what we do know is that Old Glory DC does like to use that pack, and we have seen success there from the front row hooker position on Old Glory DC. I mean, we've looked at what some of the past guys have done when it comes to
I mean,
guys like
I
Facundo
think
Gaddis and things like
yeah,
that.
but I think you really saw a fall off once Nick Suchon left, right?
Sure.
Um, and you'd love to see Old Glory DC get back to that dominant pack, just maul score trying ways. And I think Kirby Myhill and Connor Robinson are a great way to kind of get back to that.
Yeah, Connor Robinson, just as comparison, scored 67.9 fantasy points for Anthem Rugby Carolina. Facundo Gaddis, who was basically the mainstay hooker for Old Glory DC last season, 73.3. So, hey, maybe there's that value there with now you're bringing in a guy that has a pretty high threshold in terms of work rate in Connor Robinson. Can be a guy that maybe elevates that point scoring ceiling. And then the other guy that Old Glory DC just shoring up that front row room, Liam Fletcher, who played for Chicago last season, moving to Old Glory DC, not necessarily really fantasy relevant as expected with most prop players, but again, Liam Fletcher going to be able to add some depth there for Old Glory DC. We move on to Seattle, who doesn't really make a big splash
Whoa,
from a
come on.
getting new names, guys, but a splash in
Okay.
the sense that they are returning guys that are very, very important for the success of the Seattle Seawolves team. And we'll start with probably Maddie. That's probably the most excited for this guy, and that is, I guess, MLR's version of the bomb diffuser, but Duncan Matthews in terms of the ability of how
Cool.
he can track those kicks and also be a threat in returning those.
I mean, look, we saw the return of the Duncan Matthews of old that we were used to seeing in year 3 or 4 of our Fantasy Ruckers League, right? So um, it's awesome to see him kind of him back. I was really excited to see his name getting called out to be re-signed. For me, this raises the question or kind of confirms exactly where Davey Kutzer is going to be playing. Duncan Matthews is a fullback, well in like in and out for sure. David
Hmm.
Kutzer is the guy. We haven't seen them name a 10. David Kutzer is really the only 10 that's there at this point. Um, so it's almost like we expect him to be there. So for anybody who is looking to get ready for the draft, to draft David Kutzer, just know that it does look like he's likely playing 10 um, for the Seattle Seawolves.
And then you add Aina Foodie to that as well,
It's great.
which is a guy that has been obviously electric on the outside there for the
Yeah.
Seattle Seawolves, and just the ability to make big plays and score tries is great. So respectively, again, Maddie, you mentioned it. Duncan Matthews, I believe top 5 in fantasy scoring last season, finishing
Yep.
fourth, 171.4 fantasy points for him, and then Aina Foodie with 97.9. But just breaking down Duncan Matthews as an example for what his ability is, I mean, rounding out the fantasy season with 171 meters gained, 2 tries scored, a try assist to get
You
him
know, yeah,
30.4 fantasy points, and
he's not.
25.2 is his second highest in round 11.
Yeah, he's not a guy that you get for the try scoring, right? He's a guy that you get for the meter eaters,
Hmm.
for just the fact that he's going to have the ball in hand and he's going to run it back just because he can. So, yeah, that's you got to love to see it. I think that back line is really shaping up. You look at Inafuti, you look at guys like Rufus McLean, you look at guys like Duncan Matthews at the back, and then you throw a Devon Rousseau and a Dan Creel and then a Davy Kutzer, you're really thinking, and a JP Smith, you're really looking at that lineup and saying, that's looking pretty scary.
So what's that starting lineup look like for you right now? I mean, does Devon Rousseau move up to the center position? Is that what we're looking at with him out
I
as
mean, look,
outside center?
they
They
bring
do
in
have the
they bring in
signing of
Mark.
Mark
Yeah,
Bennett.
I was gonna say they bring in Mark Bennett. They bring in a tested international player. They use the international spot on him. Obviously, they're using it also on Devon Rousseau, but it's hard it's hard to not bring a guy like that in with that type of name and say we're not going to start you, right? I'm sure that they're going to have a few guys rotating through. um, you know is it possible that Dan Creel, they're kind of wanting to take back some of his playing time? Something for Dan Creel potential owners to think about as well. But a busy back room that's one where you can't pick a starting line is almost a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from a fantasy MLR sense, obviously going to cause some headaches, but definitely from a Seattle side of things in terms of depth, which we have come to learn is so crucial for a MLR championship run. Seattle is rounding out to be a pretty formidable group, especially on the back end there. So again, Duncan Matthews, Aina Foodie re-signing with the Seattle Seawolves. I think that rounds out about the signings here, just making sure, double checking that. But we do have also some departures. Thomas O'Boney, obviously, a guy that has been pretty stout for Old Glory DC. Also a USA Eagle. He actually has moved back to Italy, signing with Magliano Veneto Rugby of Serie A Elite. Did I do that right? Was that good?
Hey, I'm not Italian.
So
Italian is where I do not excel.
either way, the guy that has played in the Guinness Pro 12 before, of Zebra Parma. He now is playing in the Italian side. Again, a guy that's obviously been around with Old Glory DC is now going back overseas. So Thomas O'Boney, no more on Old Glory DC. Outside the roster notes, though, a couple housekeeping notes, or I should say just announcements that came out. From an MLR sense, the first one is the Nashville game that was announced. The Chicago Hounds will be hosting the New England Free Jacks in Nashville at Geodis Park, home of Nashville SC of the MLS. So pretty cool venue. Will Hooley, who I do talk about this in just a bit about the impact of playing in Nashville. And I know there's been debate online about, the disadvantage of Chicago home fans losing out a game on their home turf, but the advantages of also, growing the game in an area that doesn't have an MLR team and expanding in that way. Will Hooley and I have a pretty good discussion about that. That game, April 19th. Should be interesting. But yeah, Nashville fans, go buy your tickets because they are coming to your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'm a bit interested in this. I'm interested to hear what Will Hooley has to say. Um, Personally, I think you're taking two of probably the biggest among the biggest fan bases, and you're taking away games from them for them to be able to see. But yeah, I mean, look, if Nashville's the place they want to go, then Nashville's the place they want to go. I guess they must have some sort of reason to go there. There must be some sort of investor that's looking at, hey, maybe we can do something in Nashville. You wouldn't think it's Nashville to be the first place to do it, but hey, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it.
And then another big match that's coming to an area in the U.S. is announced uh, later in January that South Africa and New Zealand will be coming stateside for what is considered rugby's greatest rivalry in their touring series, the
Mm.
fourth historic test of this 2026 series. Will be coming to Baltimore, Maryland, playing at the home of the Ravens, M&T Bank Stadium on September 12th. So obviously the MLR season will be all long wrapped up. But then rugby fans will have a chance, especially
And
the ones
if
on the East Coast, to see some
Oh
pretty good
yeah,
rugby.
if you have an arm and a leg and maybe your whole life savings, yeah, you can get a nosebleed ticket for sure.
I'm looking forward to it. There may be a chance where be able to go to this
Love
right
that. Love
around my
that.
corner
Ryan,
here.
I've got some news too.
Okay, let's
I
hear
pulled
it.
some news. I pulled some news. Let's talk about some former MLR players, some former
Mm,
MLR stars, let's say. Michael Manson making his debut for the New Zealand Seven side, already making an impact, already showing his pace that we saw in the MLR with Utah. He's doing it on the Seven circuit, so love to see that. The other one, Tanila Filimone, is in the starting lineup for the Hurricanes in their preseason debut. And leading into that, we got to bring back the degenerate Dambles because Super Rugby season is starting in a couple weeks or in a few
mm,
weeks, and I'm about to be locked in on this. I'm about to be
okay,
locked in on this.
I'll have to pull up some
This is
lines here, and
this is a teaser. This is a teaser. We'll
it's
give the people the following weeks once the lines come out, once the games gets going, then we get them going.
we know how
Probably
good.
after the first week, so that I have a chance to see where all the teams are at.
Okay,
Okay.
alrighty.
Well, actually, we just put a disclaimer saying, hey, this is a little bit more degenerate than usual. The other thing, Rye, I wanted to talk to you about is our friend of the show, Jam Delay, James Dealey, also put out a potential starting 15 for Anthem. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw that.
he did.
I feel like we should at least talk about it a little bit because we've been talking about, I don't know who on this show has been basically saying Anthem's not going to finish last this year. And I've been actually not me, the people on this show have been saying that Cal Legion is actually going to finish last and Anthem's going to be finished second. I actually heard there was a hot take that was made a few episodes ago, apparently by one of the people on the show. And this lineup, I mean, I looked at it,
Pretty good.
looks like a fifth place team to me.
Well, okay, that's it. We're gonna hear it from Will. We do talk about Anthem. He has a pretty big guarantee here that he is going to say.
Is he
He
also on
said
fifth place? Don't spoil it for the people, right?
he said 100% on something, and then took it back and said, well, I don't want to say 100%, but he does have a big guarantee. So again, stay tuned for that. All right, Maddie. Any other news that you want to break down before I have a quick update?
What the heck? I thought I missed on that one. I thought we said
No,
I would not be
no,
part of that segment.
no.
Vandy would be part of those
You
segments.
alternate duties. All right, here we go.
You know, James has Johan Mumson at 8. I don't love that decision, but I actually like Hakeem Ali Khan at 8 better.
Hear you, hear a Supreme Commissioner Yi with a Fantasy Ruckers League update. all I want to say in this is
This is
Matthew's
dumb.
favorite segment.
I can't believe you're saying a little short thing. You just want to play the trumpets. You didn't even have an update.
No, I will. I do because I know a lot of people will be tuning in to check out this interview with Will Hooley. So, if you are listening or tuning into the show for the first time and you have any interest in partaking in fantasy MLR this season, hey, be in the know, stick around. Look out for us at the Fantasy Ruckers. We are going to be releasing the signups for Fantasy MLR for 2026 in the near future. So you'll want to be in the know. You want to be staying track, and we'll make sure that we send out all the appropriate announcements and disclaimers and everything out there to make sure that people are aware that they can sign up, have a team this season, be put in a league, and compete here for a fantasy MLR championship. Just wanted to throw that out there because I know a lot of people will be tuning in for this interview with Will Hooley. But either way, if this has got you to also maybe dabble in some fantasy MLR, hey, join the club. We've been making it or trying to make it a reality. Like to think we've made it a reality for the past 5 years. And yeah, come on board and add to the growing list of people who have enjoyed playing fantasy MLR for the past handful of seasons. With that being said, hey, let's not waste any more time. Let's send it out to a discussion I had with the one and only Will Hooley of the Rugby Rundown, Sunday Night Rugby, and also former pro rugby player and USA Eagle, who is going to talk about everything that happened this offseason, plus what he expects to come here in upcoming MLR 2026. Have a listen.
Sin Binterview.
All right, it is time for our Sin Binterview, and you guys have been waiting for it. Special guest. We've been waiting to have this guy on for a long time. But Will Hooley, former USA Eagle, and a whole bunch of other stuff on the title now in terms of the Rugby Rundown, Sunday Night Rugby. The list goes on and on. Will, appreciate you coming on the show here and chatting a little MLR here.
Ryan, it is always good to see you, buddy. I'm disappointed your brother is not here, but we will let him off, as I know you say he's moved cities. But yeah, really great to be with you. Love the work you do. So yeah, easy to when you asked to come on. I'm like, yeah, I'm here.
Hey, love to hear it. Yeah, West Coast apparently is the best coast. At least that's what my brother says, right? So it's all good. We make it work. But yeah, no, I mean, there's no shortage of things, Will, that we need to touch on here. But I want to first start off. 2026 seems like it's going to be a pretty big year for you, man. I mean, aside from all the rugby stuff, obviously got a daughter on the way here that I saw, which is awesome. Congratulations and everything else that's going on. I mean, talk about a year that's probably going to be pretty memorable for you.
Oh yeah, I think so. I hope so. Yeah, you mentioned it. Yeah, my wife and I are expecting our first child, a baby girl. Due date is pretty much in line with when MLR starts. So it's talk about the timing of it.
Sure.
It's going to be interesting. Well, I mean, look, there's no such thing as a perfect timing, and honestly, we're just blessed to even to be going through this. My wife's been a trooper, and yeah, we're looking forward to a big year, and equally with MLR and everything that's going on around that personally as well. The ventures that I'm behind. Which is fantastic, but equally at the same time, you know, it's kind of thick and fast, not taking it too far ahead of myself. You know, there's some good things to come.
Yeah, well, you know, Will, it wouldn't happen any other way, right? It obviously
Exactly.
is all going to clash at the same time. But obviously, yeah, we'll talk about MLR 2026. It looks a little bit different than how it maybe looked last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess let's kind of go down that timeline here. And you and I were just chatting about the offseason from hell, for a lack of better terms. I think for a lot of MLR fans out there, it was just kind of a wave after wave after wave of kind of news that maybe a lot of people, after what a lot of people thought was a fantastic and competitive MLR 2025, kind of some shocking stuff transpiring. We've hashed it all out. We've talked about it on the show. I know you've talked about it, you know, with all the departures of the teams down to 6 teams from 11. But let's just talk overall in terms of your overall thoughts and your reaction now that you've had time to simmer on it, reflect on it, and we are under 2 months away from MLR 2026. Hopefully this is the last conversation we can have about looking back on this offseason, but let's try to wrap it up with a bow here so we can look ahead to the exciting to come. Your overall thoughts now that you kind of look back at everything that went down of this offseason. What do you think about it?
Great question. I mean, because I want to try and be different here, I almost want to try and give a comparison. It's like the month of December. You go into it really high hopes, coming up towards Christmas, whatever it might be, and all things like that. And then sometimes you're met almost with a huge amount of disappointment when it actually comes to Christmas Day itself. You're like, oh, that was all. So there's definitely an element of that whereby all the work that you do, the back end of last season, go into the draft, and then it's like, oh, the chips start falling, the negatives start rising. And look, it was difficult, really difficult. I think anyone involved in the league, whether it's players, coaches, people involved in the office, and of course the fans. And look, what I can say, I think about it now as we sit in 2026, and forgive me, by the way, if that comparison of using December was not the best. But what I do mean is then we are looking at a season that's coming up, which is fresh. It's exciting, though. We have 6 very competitive teams. I think that's the beautiful thing about it now, whether you're looking at Anthem or whether you're looking at the Free Jacks, and I'm literally talking about top and bottom of the table, what has been in the past is now going to be a really interesting game. That's a guarantee. There's new things going on as well. There's certain changes that are being made internally that I think externally will be very notable. And I'm excited about those changes. And I think for all the fans who have maybe still got question marks or maybe still are skeptics, totally understand it still to those people there. And you're right in your assessment, obviously, of what has gone before. But actually what's to come, I think almost like stay with this. This is here for the long run. There is definitely a progression to go towards 2031 and beyond. And MLR is one, not the only sort of arm of rugby here in America, but a very important arm. I think we all know that deep down as well. No matter if you do want to be negative, you do want to have a jibe at it, a jab, or whatever it might be, a comment on social media you say there, and whatever it might be. Look, it's fine. It's understandable. But I do believe the people now behind the wheel, because of now what the changes have been made, I think is for the better going forward. And I think you've got to think about going forward. Not that from the past, those people that were, no, excellent work, but it's just like the cards you dealt with, we now go forward, new season approaching, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the best way to put it there, Will, is I guess looking ahead. But I guess it is interesting, though, because as hectic as it was this past offseason, and whether it's a positive, negative, or just growing pains of this league, right? For as long as we've been following it, as long as you've been involved, I mean, this is, for a lack of better terms, not brand new, right? We've dealt with things like this in the past. So when you talk about longevity and you talk about, this being in for the long run, I think you and I can both agree that there are a lot of people that have that skepticism, right?
Yeah.
What do you tell to those fans that are like, oh, maybe getting a little fatigued and like, are you kidding? Like this happened again? Like, why should I continue to invest my time, my money, and all these things into a league that I guess is having trouble trying to get that footing? Now, all brand new leagues deal with that, and it's hard to break through to the sports scene, especially here in North America when it comes to a niche sport like that. But overall, Will, I mean, like, what's your message to those fans that are just trying to grasp at some sort of positive note for them to know and feel confident that, hey, this is something I can be a part of in the long run?
It's another great question. And also, let me just start that, Ryan, by I get it. There is no one, I don't think there's anyone at a Major League Rugby or anyone who might be involved in whatever department it be and be like, oh, this is a bit harsh from whoever's saying this or that. No, it makes sense. It's and I think you've got to be accountable for what you can be accountable of. And unfortunately, there's other things you just cannot control. I think there's a few things in the matter. I think one, that the 6, as you put it, teams and the ownerships behind them are incredibly committed. We might come on to it in a minute. When I spoke to Peter Burnick, who's majority owner at Chicago Hounds, I had a really good chat with Peter. The interview that I put out there on social media, whatever, as you can imagine, was only, about 3 minutes of what was 15 minutes worth of that is a man who doesn't have rugby in his background at all. He is here to invest in what he believes in, and he believes in Chicago Hounds, Major League Rugby, and rugby here in America. So that's probably one of the things is what we have now is a collective buy-in of ownership groups where I don't believe the round table is having too much disagreement. I think there's a lot of agreement. Other thing which I'm very aware of is I think 2026 is going to be this year of 6, and I think there beyond looks like more. And more, I don't see that just being 6 to 12 all of a sudden, but certainly a couple of teams or cities, I should say, are certainly in the mix, are certainly being circled, and there's some active movement being done right now for 2027 and beyond as well. So this is why I mean it's like it's not just a short-term plan that we just need to get through 2026 season. It's like, no, it's what's coming after. The other part of it is I believe hugely. I believe in all sides of the game here in the US. And I know my accent doesn't give it away. And I know I wasn't born and bred here. And I understand that. But also know that I like to think I have a pretty good knowledge and also an understanding of the game itself. And that helps when I say I do believe that professional rugby is needed in this country. And I'm not just saying that for the sake of the World Cup in 2031, but for the building of our future Eagles, for the building of a game which we love. I mean, Ryan, you love it. I love it. We all know what rugby brings. And I believe that America is, and it was a saying actually of the former commissioner, Nick Benson, that rugby, there are however many million rugby fans in the US, they just don't know it yet. And his saying was always like, it needs to just be put in front of them. That has been worked on, whether it is relationship with ESPN, whether it is shoulder content, whether it's just accessibility and marketing that is going to be done. And I stress, those are changes that are literally just happening. And I do believe we'll see the full fruition of that. So then I say about why I think professional rugby is so needed is then also goes back, like, let's just think about the players involved in this as well. Like, we want a competition and we want to have professional rugby. So the likes of Noah Brown, Peyton Wall, Sam Goller can flourish here in this country, professional rugby being here, which is only going to help the Eagles. Yes, having someone like AJ McGinty and yes, having someone like Jack Ascaro playing overseas is beneficial. And again, I say this from almost an ironic position. Most of my career was overseas before coming to Major League Rugby. But at the same time, to have the carrot that's in front of, if my little boy or whatever in the future, whatever it is, wants to go and he really wants to be a rugby player, he's got to have something to tangibly hold on to in this country rather than just, okay, cool, the All Blacks come and whatever, and that gets you excited. But what's the pathway? I still think we need to do better on that. That is a no-brainer. And I'm not involved ultimately in all those conversations, but that is where I would just say to those fans is stay with it. Like, we need this overall. Changes are being made to make sure that what we need is actually kind of like what we need and how it can develop and grow. And then, yeah, I do believe actually what we're going into in 2026 is really strong, and what can be built of that. I think we can play Captain Hindsight and say maybe this should have been done after the Gilgronis day, Ryan. Maybe this should have been done then. We're here now. Let's deal with it here and now. And you're right about the US sport landscape. These things happen. It's about how you respond. And I do believe there is a good response on the horizon.
Yeah. I mean, if there's one thing I can say about this league, especially for the time that we've covered it here, is resiliency, right? Like there's been no shortage of things that this league has faced in the past. I mean, you list it, you name it, they've dealt with it. And look at here we are looking forward to another MLR 20.
And actually, Ryan, if I could just say one last thing as well, because I want to say this probably from a player perspective is, get behind those players. They've had to deal with a lot of stuff. And ultimately, when you think about families and everyone involved and the hardship of team maybe folding and then them having to move, really trying to focus on domestic players, whatever. If nothing else, and this is what I sometimes say, like I speak to the San Diego people about California Legion, it's like, get behind the players, get behind the likes of a Ryan James or wherever it might be, or rugby in this state. So that's what I also say is, like, for the fans, like, no matter your grumblings of what's gone on, get behind the rugby and the players, because they'll need your support.
Yeah. And what the coolest thing for me about this sport has always been, or at least the dream for me has been, is just the untapped potential that this sport has. If the US is just able to open that floodgate, right? Like, I've seen it in the past where if the US can just buy into something in a totality way, like there's no question that you can just launch up the potential, the amount of the level of performance, things like that. It just takes that buy-in, like you mentioned. And again, for all those that are on that fence, I would rather be there when that happens than be sitting on the sidelines and kind of giving up on something that could have been or looks like it could have been because we need to get through some tough times, right? So I have no shortage of friends who have moved on from sports. We talked about Cash Maluia, who had a career in the NFL and now is playing with the California Legion. Guys like that, you know what I mean? That find that potential in this sport that they don't even know about, like you mentioned. So, yeah, I mean, when that day comes, it's going to be exciting. We just got to, I guess, weather that storm here moving forward. But let's talk about those 6 teams that you've been alluding to. And I think with the theme of being optimistic, I always like to tell my brother and Vandy on this show that I am the optimist on this show, and I like to give a silver lining in anything. And I think what 6 teams has done is that when you turn on the TV on Saturday, Sunday Night Rugby, the performance and the level of rugby that you're going to get is going to be quality rugby, right? Like I'm just seeing some of these squads that are being put together as they finalize and round out the rosters. Like it just seems like it can go in any direction, and it's just going to be exciting rugby to watch. That's going to be competitive, which I think everyone would like to see. What are your thoughts on that in terms of the parity dropping down from 11 to 6, the competition overall? Some people have issue that 4 out of the 6 teams are making playoffs, and it's like, okay, like what do we, what kind of competition has it? But you got to do with what you got, and I think overall, the performance level is going to be increased. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think every game's going to matter, Ryan. I think you got 10 games for each team, and you cannot slip up to a degree. We've seen previously in Major League Rugby, you can almost, and I remember this as a player as well, you can almost, excuse me, you can almost sort of go to about week 4 still in preseason mode because you're still, preseasons are not necessarily always long, notoriously in MLR, and then you can kind of just bring yourself in. We even saw that with the Free Jacks last year. They didn't really turn up until I remember that away win they got in, maybe it was week 7 against Utah Warriors, right at the death. Andrew Quattram got in for a try, I'll never forget it, and that really kicked their year on. They physically won't be able to do that this year. You have to hit the ground running. Every game matters. So, yeah, you could say, the top 4 teams will go through, but I bet you that is going to be within a win, basically, within a 4 points between actually who maybe makes it and doesn't. I really do think it will come down to probably the last weekend, which makes the jeopardy of it, I think, really great, really interesting. So, yeah, the squads are looking great. I think ultimately, maybe this is your next question, so forgive me, but like I do still look at some of those, like the Chicago, the Free Jacks, they still really are up there, as well as what I guess, Seattle are putting together. But the Legion, we've just mentioned how, Cash, you've mentioned, Billy Meeks, Ryan James. I know there's names that are starting to roll out now. They are going to be a force. And as well as, obviously, we haven't mentioned DC and Anthem. So I do think the usuals will probably still be up there. But the reality is there can't be a slip up. And also the reality is someone like Anthem's not going to not win a game. They will. In fact, they'll win multiple. And that's what it will come down to. I really believe it will come down to the last weekend as to who's in and who's out.
And we do bring up the conversation of football because obviously as a fantasy sports show, right? Fantasy football is the bread and butter of and I mean, the product of the NFL, right? That's what any sports league wants to get to. And I think the intrigue of that particularly is that you've heard the saying, any given Sunday, right? Like you can tune in and you don't know what you're going to get, right? And I think that's what we're building up here in the MLR is that any Friday, Saturday, Sunday you tune in, it could really be any team that could come out with the victory that evening. And I think that's what makes it so intriguing, especially this season. But I want to get into kind of almost each team.
Yep.
Because each team has their storylines. And I want to start off because obviously your playing days, maybe we'll go down nostalgia road. San Diego Legion, right? Obviously, the merger with them and California to now form this California Legion side. What are your thoughts on that approach? I know the statement coming out with MLR talking about growing the game of rugby and this being an initiative that they feel is going to best impact that. And I think that is the mantra and the goal that every team has had. But I know there's been critics with, them not having necessarily a hometown, right? Like they're going to be playing at a variety of locations. So there is, pros and cons to that. Your thoughts on the California Legion approach and how that may benefit rugby in that area, and if you think that's the right call.
Well, look, I think first and foremost, and I believe actually Adam Fryer even came out. Adam Fryer, the chief executive who is at California Legion, came out and ultimately there were some tough things they had to deal with as well. Not only is it venue changes because of the FIFA Soccer World Cup that's coming up, California being a big sort of part of that, in particular sort of the LA area, and then equally as well, just in terms of, I think what people needed to understand is this was a ploy to make sure we kept professional rugby in California Legion, to hold a professional rugby team, because I don't know ultimately overall whether it's expensive down here, man. Like, there's no other way of saying it. Now, I live down towards San Diego, and the incredible work that when I think about San Diego Legion that the ownership group did on there, like everything they poured in, like there has to become a point as well as like, okay, for the future, what is going to be the most efficient thing that makes sense? Now, San Diego people will hate me saying that, and I feel you. So I know, I'm here in San Diego. I'm a Padres fan on the baseball side of things. I understand. But I stress, it's about keeping professional rugby here in California and what could springboard maybe in the future as well. I do like the idea that they are here to try and capture rugby, which is ultimately in a short amount of time because of a short season, trying to do their very best in the state. We haven't seen professional rugby properly. No, I know there was a pro league and there was a Sacramento team back then, but we haven't seen it for a long time. Certainly, to be able to take the game and be able to showcase it in front of those fans and really engage in sort of maybe almost festival-like environments for each of those games, you're going to naturally touch potentially a stronger fan base. San Diego will have its game. LA will have its game, and North California will have its game. And in reality of what is a short season, it's making a best case scenario out of it all. So California is a hotbed of rugby. I really do believe that. I do believe in the future as well. Like, we will see probably more teams in this California region. For the moment time being, though, to have a representative state, I think is really, really important for the move forward. And this could last and actually really, really work. So I just say for fans, like, just stay with it. It goes back to my thing about the players. Support the players, really get behind the players. And when it's in your town, get behind it as well, because of what's hopefully going to come in the future and whatever it might be. I do really appreciate everyone involved in California Legion to try and make this new franchise, because it's a new franchise, ultimately work. And they're going to have a great team, and they're going to play in a brilliant brand of rugby with Stephen Hoyles and the coaching staff. We know that. We saw that when he was with RFCLA last year. Mm-hmm. So I am going to be positive about this California Legion, particularly on the rugby side. And yeah, just ask fans to get behind it. And I know those naysayers will shout me down for being positive, but at the same time, well, what is the other alternative? Otherwise, okay, there's no rugby at all. And that's not where we need to be at the moment. We need to build back up, and Legion are looking to do that.
Yeah, Stephen Hoyles, that brand of rugby, it's my favorite to watch last season, and I know for fantasy managers in terms of the points scored, it was pretty enjoyable for people too. All right, Anthem, you mentioned it on tape here. A couple wins. You think this upcoming year?
Definitely.
They're still searching for it in franchise history, but you look at this roster in the terms of the mix of talent that they've been able to bring in from both obviously an American homegrown side and also some of these international players to supplement that. Your outlook on this team, and I guess the larger question, obviously the goal of this team was to help the development of USA Rugby ultimately. How do you think, with the way that they've constructed their roster, plays into feeding into that goal that they have?
A great question again. Look, I think they've taken an undertaking because of the amount of players that are probably on the market. And I mean that after the teams that are folded, as much as the American domestic players are absolutely the most important thing, I still believe that is the thing at Anthem. I think the stat came out and it was 84% or 86% were domestically qualified for USA Eagles or something like that, or something even like 33% were USA current Eagles, which is fantastic. But also, they want to make sure that they compete and have those Eagles who are playing in a franchise team winning. And that's the other thing which we must say about Anthem in the past, not getting that win and then bringing that across into USA Eagles. It's quite hard, just even, in your mental state. And I say this from a player experience, you kind of, if you're used to losing, well, guess what? You potentially almost like, not that you're happy with it, but you don't have that quite maybe same kind of like drive to go and win in a national team. I think I hope you understand what I mean by that. There's nothing against anyone that was previously part of it. I really like some of those signings coming in. The likes of someone like a Luke Carty to really get the reins of that team. I think they have missed the number 10. But I also love the way that Seth Smith is brought in, but he also still going to be able to work with Johan Mompson in the second row or James Scott. That's going to help him. And then Sam Goller's going to work alongside, again, Mompson. Like, there's going to just create a really good and competitive environment. That's what I look at across the board, really. Like, those squads are not that big, but it'd be really competitive internally to get a starting spot. So I would say, really excited Anthem. They are going to win a game 100%. I'm saying it now. We can never say 100%, but 99.9% sure they're going to win a game. I think they're going to really be an annoyance for teams as well. They've got some really good operators, both young and also veterans as well.
It brings up a good point, and it's a conversation we've had on this show before too. Is that fine balance between homegrown development and taking advantage of international names that can kind of bring in and maybe lift some of that performance and lift some of that experience up to benefit some of these homegrown players. Where do you lie on that in terms of where that balance lies? Because I think that's one of the most interesting questions and debates that I've had is you love to have those marquee names. And back when we had the New York Ironworkers, when they were bringing in some of those former All Blacks, right? Like, friend of the show, Andrew Coe, has talked on this show before about how beneficial it was for him to learn aside some of these guys, to learn from Nehe Milner-Skudder, right? Guys that they never imagined that they'd be playing with. And I'm sure the same goes for some of these American players that do embrace that opportunity to learn from some of these huge, huge names. Where do you think of that and the advantage of that? And where is that balance? Where can you find that perfect medium of emphasizing what is here in the US while also not relying too heavily on some of these international names?
Only way it works, in my opinion, is if those foreigners come in with the right mindset. And we've seen that before, where I've noticed it as well at times when I was at San Diego. No disrespect, no names going to float out there, but I don't think we're here completely for the right reasons. They really were just here for a kind of holiday, and unfortunately, it's a pretty good holiday in California. But they've got to come into the right reasons. They've got to be in, like, knowing that ultimately they are upskilling, but also being that teammate that is, what I mean by upskilling is upskilling like the likes of a young Seth Smith, and also leadership that then transfers onto someone like a Sam Goller and whatever it might be. And really, like, I guess they're here for not just themselves, off the field as well. I really hope that what they're doing off the field, or this coaching the community or whatever it might be. So mindset is everything for the foreigners. And also, like, I now know, because of the foreign pool now being smaller, if your foreign is coming, like, you got to damn well make sure that he's good enough to be in that starting role, because if he's not, then he's waste. And also, like, you don't want to waste just like a kind of position in the 23 when actually an American could take that role. I think that's also very important. So where I lie on that, honestly, is pretty straightforward. I've seen people like the Free Jacks and their foreigners come in and clearly buy into their vision, and they're all in. I've seen other teams as well. It's a mindset thing. So I believe you do need that element of foreign player to help with the product and help with maybe the lifter standard, but it doesn't mean anything if they don't come in and actually are here to genuinely play, lift the standard, and frankly pick up the domestic people around them to say, hey guys, this is how, I believe is the most professional way, and show them a way. And I then have also seen that, by the way, Ryan, on foreigners who've come in and really sort of shown the way, and that has been the ultimate benefit to then the domestic people with them.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because, again, the name value of bringing someone over that people know in the rugby world and then having that perfect mix of them being in that right mindset. I mean, it's a win-win situation, but again, both those things need to come into play for, I guess, both sides to benefit from that. All right, let's move to Chicago. You have the backdrop behind you. I think the storyline,
Yes.
obviously the most recent, has been this announcement of playing in Nashville against the New England Free Jacks. I saw your conversation there talking about this. And I think the biggest sentiment I got from that is just another effort to try to grow this game in areas across the states, right? Is this something that you think has long-term appeal to that? I've seen both sides of it where, it's just another game where we're playing a home game away from home and Chicago fans can't get out there or New England fans can't get out there. But at the same time, you're going to be reaching fans that can't see any rugby and they're going to be seeing some of the best here in North America. Nashville game thoughts.
Yeah, look, Peter Burnick, majority owner at Chicago Hound, spoke to him, and I really like Peter. He's a super thoughtful owner and man who, by the way, for listeners who maybe don't completely understand, like, he had no rugby prior experience or need, or frankly, like, it's a hobby to invest in. He chose to invest. He came across this or whatever and believes in the vision. A very successful person as well in other entities. So the fact that he has belief in something like this, I think, is great. He obviously now is a fan and he absolutely loves it. And he said to me, it's on all of us in this league. It's on all of us to grow the game. And I know I've seen people take a few jabs at that in terms of what does grow the game mean, or how is it growing the game when the league is, well, okay, again, it's about the here and now. There is a element of whereby this is an opportunity that they could take, and they believe that it's a risk worth taking. Those Chicago fans, good on them, because it's going to be, buy-in, which is hard, I'm sure, for some, because they will be frustrated that a game is taken away from them, but also the potential of what's coming down the line, maybe in 2027, and what that will mean. And the fact that Chicago are holding the baton up high and said, yeah, we're going to take this game forward, huge respect for that. Come on, you've got to have huge respect for that. It's a cool city. It's a potential World Cup host city. And it's a great game at a great venue. We've got to try things different, Ryan. And if we don't, then we are going to just sit in the lane that we've been in, which, by the way, clearly that lane hasn't completely been working. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah. And I mean, if I've seen it in the past in terms of some of these passionate fans who do know how to travel, i.e. When I'm in the Carolinas and I'm seeing New England Free Jacks, obviously closer, but Houston SaberCats fans at the time coming up, I'm sure there'll be your handful of Chicago Hounds fans that maybe make a vacation out of it and say, hey, maybe I haven't been to Nashville yet. Come swing on down along with all the other possible new rugby fans. All right. A big thing as well there, Will. I kind of made the joke of list all the above in terms of what you're involved in when it comes to the league. But Sunday Night Rugby, I mean, that's got to be pretty exciting for you. For people out there that don't maybe know what to expect, can you in a nutshell explain what Sunday Night Rugby is and how excited you are to have that platform on a marquee sports network like ESPN to, I guess, to your point, help grow the game?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's great, isn't it? It's pretty cool. Trying something different. There's been, some great minds that have come together, both internally and externally. And I'd love to say that I'm taking all the credit. I sadly cannot. But at the same time, this belief of trying to get what probably the American fan knows as consistency to their weekends. For example, kickoff times when it comes to the NFL, certain time when it's, I know it by Pacific time, but like I know there's a game on whatever it is at midday, my time, 3 p.m., 6 p.m. We're trying to, I think, ultimately go for the consistency in scheduling, and then equally showcase, like really, if especially when we got 3 games a weekend on average, showcase, go for one prop. We all know the broadcast needs to improve. And I say that from a personal standpoint as well. I need to improve. Like, trust me, like I'll look at myself more than I'll look at anyone else. And ultimately, like this, I believe is what fans will be really impressed by. And it's not locked in stone as to the people involved in that, whether they're on the desk, whether they're in the studio, whether they're obviously the talk about being in venue as well for some of those talent. it's just going to be as a really sort of great spectacle to enhance our game, that one game on the Sunday, through preview, through halftime, and then through review as well. See it as like literally that sort of round off of your weekend. I know we had a fantastic job that All Access did. That came kind of like in the Tuesday or whatever in the week. See a bit of that, but also with something a bit different as well. Maybe some non-rugby perspectives, maybe some non-rugby figures thrown into the mix in all of that, and doing it the modern justice, whilst also, by the way, Ryan, making sure that rugby's been talked about. I've been big on this in some of the meetings. Is like, you'll get good analysis, you'll get good people talking about it, and also a lot of fun, hopefully, on the way as well. Certainly just won't be me. I maybe just be moderating and throwing in a couple of thoughts here and there, and there'll be other people involved. I do believe it's something which, again, we're trying, a bit like the Nashville thing. It's a thing to go outside the box for us as a league and bring something new to the table.
And perfect transition into kind of one of my final questions is just the movement from you being a former professional rugby player to now what you've done in the media space. And I know that transition is not necessarily the easiest. A lot to learn. We've had conversations together about the some of the behind the scenes stuff that you just got to kind of learn on the fly and kind of figure out on your own and make it look as good as you possibly can. But it seems like you no better than anyone else, has made that transition so seamless. And I know there's a lot of other players that are finding their groove in terms of how they transition from this pro rugby world to whatever they may do post-playing career, whether that's in the media or not. But for you personally, I mean, how has that transition been for you to get into the media space and now seeing all that you're doing? I mean, it's pretty incredible to have watched here firsthand.
Oh, well, first of all, very kind of you. I always, whenever someone says very kind, it's like, oh dear, do I need to send them an invoice or something after this? But look, I mean, first of all, I'm blessed the opportunity. At the end of the day, opportunity was put in front of me. I earned it. I like to think as well, but you need a little bit of fortune. So I do fit on that. I'm here to do a service to also do my best in growing the game. Yeah, my accent might be a little bit different, but I care a hell of a lot about rugby in the States, and it's in my blood as well, quite literally. Just trying to do all I can. I mean, background wise, I had my career, but I also knew that the day was going to come where I wanted to leave the game on my terms. I didn't want to have Will, there's not a contract for you, or Will, you can't play anymore because your neck or your knee is, buggered. Like, I wanted to be like, I had my career, and my career was okay. Wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. It was all right. Did some cool things. And then I also could make the decision to move into something I really wanted to do. I found the media, particularly when I was actually in the UK, playing in the Premiership, got involved in a degree. So I have a degree in sports journalism, broadcasting, and media, and also then got a lot of experience at that, whether it's writing in The Guardian or doing a podcast or getting involved in radio, and continued that when I came over to States. I wanted to be involved in things like the All Access show when I could, or certain other bits and bobs, and I look back now and I'm thinking, oh, why did I not do more? But ultimately, try to pave a pathway out of the game. And that's what I would say to players out there is, there's a finite amount of time that you must absolutely grab everything from your career, both experience, finances, whatever it might be. But at the same time, have half an eye on what you want to do next, because I'm just at the beginning. I'll be, 2.5 years out of playing. I'm just at the beginning of my next career. I want to go to the next stage, from A to B at 100 miles an hour. But I know it's going to take time. I'm still raw, still learning. But yeah, I got myself ready. And that's the biggest thing I would say. I'm grateful for MLR that they wanted to bring me in, and trying to repay that back by the work that I do in all different facets. But then I also think in the ecosystem of the media, we need, someone like me and others. I really am working, particularly, hopefully, this year. Maybe another couple of people who you might see come to the stage of the media who were previous players. But we need the fans talking about the game. We need the passionate people. We need the fantasy leagues. And we need other industries connecting maybe with other media focuses, whether that's in another sport or whatever it might be, all at the table. We've all got a job to do. I'm just one tiny grain of sand part of it.
There you go. Couldn't have said it better myself, Will. All right. Finish it off with a couple quick hitters, okay? So nothing too difficult here, but we'll go for that. obviously fantasy sports show, fantasy MLR show. Been trying to make it a reality for the past 5, 6, 7 years that we've been
man,
doing this.
doing great.
I want to know if you had the number one overall pick. I don't know if you play fantasy football or any other fantasy sports.
I won it this year, so yeah, I do.
Okay, so there you
big
go.
one.
There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
we
yeah.
might have to send the invite to the fantasy football league then. Eh? We'll see if we can take down Will Hooley.
Yeah.
The number one player last year in fantasy MLR, Joe Mono, what
Yeah,
he was
right.
able to do with 187.2 fantasy points. Jonah Moe was not too far behind him. If you had the first overall pick this year, who do you think you'd be going for?
Yeah, really, really good shout. I think at the end of the day, it's interesting. Why is Joe Mono there? He scored a boatload of tries, didn't he? Paula Balacana not too far behind. I think you got to think about who's going to be your try scorers and which teams are going to really offer that try scoring ability. You know what? I'm going to really put my neck out here and say I think someone like Ryan James might be an absolute gem. Domestic player playing for California Legion. Yeah, he's up. He's within the top 10, isn't he? And
Yeah.
I just think the way that the Legion will play, no doubt, under Stephen Hoyles, you're gonna have people on the back end scoring tries. Loves playing in open play. Ryan James loves playing with ball in hand. Yeah, a meter eater, and then also a try scorer, and then the other one who you can't look past. I mean, come on, I'm going to stay with the Legion again. Is someone like Billy Meeks? I mean, like he just goes year after year, phenomenal in MLR. I was with him actually doing a little bit of behind the scenes filming, which hopefully will be out soon enough. He's in great shape. I mean, honestly, so. There's probably a couple of California Legion guys. Obviously, could go and pick elsewhere. I know, with someone like Ollie Devoto being in the midfield for Chicago. And then I mean, there's loads of options, aren't there? I mean,
The
I'm
list
not
goes
going
on
to
and
list
on.
them up. But if you wanted an answer from me, I'm going to go Ryan James. I just think he is going to score a boatload of tries in a California Legion attack that is going to
It
score a lot
sounds
of tries.
it sounds like you got the fantasy MLR strategy all down pat. You just got to shift that fantasy football skill now
Yeah,
to
man, it was
over
a
here at the
great
Fantasy
year for
Ruckers.
me. Great year for
Um,
me.
your favorite acquisition so far this season?
Favorite acquisition? Give me a bit more than that. What do you
I
mean?
mean, just like anyone who's finding themselves on a new team this year. It could be someone that's been in the
Yes.
league or someone brand new, but obviously a lot of movement here. Who are you most excited to see in some new colors this season?
Yeah. Really good question. I really want to see the best out of Vita Lepetti at Chicago Hounds.
Mhm.
I think we're all still waiting to see the best of him in USA Eagles colors, and I think I love Lepetti. He's a great guy, and I think I mean that respectfully. He's so talented. I think he's going to really work well alongside Ollie Devoto in the midfield for Chicago. So I'm particularly looking forward to that. And then the other one who. I mean, there's two actually, if I could say, because they're both in the same position, both new, is the two fly halves are in new. Davy Kutzer going to Seattle Seawolves and then Joel Hodgson going to New England Free Jacks. Two brilliant, brilliant signings. I think Joel Hodgson, maybe I'm closer to Joel than Davy, so apologies, Davy. What a talent. Want to see him in a USA Eagles jersey. Um, these other two guys you should get in your fantasy team. But I think Joel is a brilliant signing. Potros leaving, bring Hodgson in, veteran, the way that they play, the structure of attack, the kicking game as well, that we know someone like Ryan Martin likes to put and likes to involve. Yeah, I'd say Joel Hodgson would be right up there as well as a great, great signing heading to the New England Free Jacks.
Yeah, couldn't say it better myself. Last one. I'm not going to say for you to pick your champion. I think it's a little bit too early for that. So I'll word it like this. What team are you most excited for this upcoming year?
Yeah, you have to be excited for Anthem because we've waited and for their first win, they'll be going to their third season. And I think we really look at this team now with the experience sprinkled with a bit of stardust from elsewhere, as well as also having a boatload of domestic really built around that. They're going to win games. I'm confident they're going to win games. So I could say to you, the likes of, this could be Chicago's year, yes. And there's some other, by the way, we haven't talked about even DC and Seattle who have really put together a couple of really strong squads and what they got going on. But I'm most looking forward to Anthem because I think this has to be the year that the L's start turning into W's.
The anticipation of that first win is just going to be
coming.
electric. I'm hoping it happens at home. It'll just be ridiculous. All right. Well, hey, always appreciate the time, Will. We'll leave it on this note. I saw that you are dabbling into the YouTube space. So all I'm going to say is where can people find you? What do people need to know about consuming more Will Hooley content?
Some people wouldn't.
Where can I direct people?
Very kind of you. I've got a lot of messages recently about this, and people are like, "What's your?" Honestly, Ryan, and I've been totally transparent. I don't have much of a plan of it. I just have been putting it off for the last couple of years, and I really want to get on top of it before the kid comes, before my daughter comes. You can find it Will Hooley channel, simple as that, on YouTube. Already dropped the first video. I had a big chat with Chris Robshaw. Go on there because it's Six Nations. Him talking about his time with Strictly Come Dancing, which is, by the way, Dancing with the Stars equivalent in the UK. And then also very upfront, very honest about his experience in California and what he thinks to whether a Six Nations game will come to the US. So I will leave that as a bit of a cliffhanger to for people to go and check me out. Go and subscribe. I'm not promising anything. There's going to be probably a variation of content, stuff that I don't do outside of work. I want to tap into the dad life, the dad world, maybe some other sports as well here and there, in maybe some spare time that I have. But yeah, just thought I'd add it to the bow. It's always worth having, isn't it?
Hey, if you need more Will Hooley in your life, there you can go check it out.
Bless
At
you.
Will_Hooley on X, W Hooley on Instagram. Always appreciate you having you on, Will.
Thanks, Ryan.
Great insight. I think a lot of our fans do appreciate it as well.
Take care, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And thanks again to friend of the show, Will Hooley, for joining us and giving us all that great insight into all that that he knows that has gone behind the scenes in terms of the league. And obviously with his perspective, being a former player of the MLR, having been in the USA Eagles system, having played overseas, again, insight and perspective that I know we value greatly here on the show, and I know that our listeners and viewers value as well. At least from a fantasy sense, though, Maddie, some interesting takes. Pretty high on Anthem Rugby Carolina, Will Hooley is, so maybe that means fantasy assets, like we talked at the start of the show.
Is not 100% on one win high on Anthem Carolina?
No, he said a couple wins.
That's not
at
high
least
on Anthem Carolina. I'm high on Anthem Carolina. 5th place. That's the highest they've ever placed.
The one that might be the most disputable in terms of the differences between you and him is where California is going to finish, because you have them finishing last. I think the way that Will broke it down.
What information does he have? He must know their entire roster.
I think he just might. But who knows? And then his number 1 overall pick. I gave him the choice. He said he was a fantasy football champion. I said, bring that prowess over to fantasy MLR. And who would you pick? And he went with Ryan James, a guy that finished 9th last season, so not out of the realm of possibilities. With his perspective and his thoughts on how California is going to play, he even had, despite not having played fantasy MLR in the past, Maddie, he had the strategy down. He said, I need try scorers, I need guys that are going to get meters, and Ryan James for him fit that mold. What do you think about that?
I mean, I would just take a look at how the California or RCLA, whatever the heck their name was, how their back three did. You know, friend of the show, Andrew Coe, definitely saw a dip in his performance, in his fantasy output. Rory Van Voot.
He did say off camera, though, that he missed having you on the interview. So there is that. I did tell him that you moved out to the West Coast.
Well, now we're on the same coast. We're on the same coast. We're in the same state.
It was mentioned West Coast, best coast. That was said in that interview. Either way, thanks again to Will Hooley for hopping on the show. With that being said, though, we did talk about a handful of signings. Cash Maluia is one of them, and he was a former New England Patriot, a former Tennessee tight end. And I got some interesting questions to ask Vandy with that football rugby crossover in terms of who he thinks would be some solid rugby MLR players that we've seen in the NFL. And you listeners and viewers thought you could get away without getting your weekly dose of Devin Vandy Vanderpool, but here is the man, the myth, the legend himself here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. I guess he deserves an applause. Here he is.
Thank you.
Bringing him in here to talk a little bit fantasy MLR and maybe crossing that with some fantasy football, which is how you got into this whole fantasy sports things. Maddie and I talked a little bit earlier about the signing of Cash Maluia, who is a former New England Patriot, former Tennessee Titan,
Come on.
and obviously has played on the San Diego Legion and now signs with the California Legion, gave me the fun idea here, Vandy, that maybe we got to do a little crossover segment here about how maybe fantasy football, fantasy MLR, NFL,
Could
MLR
intertwine.
can intertwine. Exactly
Oh,
here.
okay.
But just to give kind of an overview, Vandy, fantasy football was really your first introduction to this whole fantasy sports thing. And can I say that it maybe has changed your life just a little bit, or maybe cut off a few years with all the stress that it's caused you over the past more than a decade?
Yeah, it definitely has taken its toll. 100%. A lot of good, but lots of bad, lots of bad. But no, I mean, it was a great segue to becoming a football fan. It was the exact same kind of thing as rugby, except for I got to watch clips of players before I joined the league. But no, it was good. I mean, it's how I became a football fan. Now, obviously, you watch football far after your fantasy's done, and I mean, you do the same with rugby. So I mean, same idea. It was the vehicle for it. Now you love it for it. So.
Yeah, now we just got to find some other niche sport for you to dive
Yeah.
into
I'm gonna get
and
into
add.
disc golf.
Exactly. But either way, yeah, that's exactly what we want to try to do here with Fantasy MLR. Exactly what fantasy football did for you, Vandy, and that is introduce this sport to people who may not know about it yet and how fun it can be. And obviously, you've been on this Fantasy MLR train since we began this thing, and you've had a whole blast and learned a whole lot. We talked about it last episode about how far you've grown in terms of rugby through the vehicle that you mentioned of Fantasy MLR. And yeah, I mean, it's been insane. And the reason why we bring it up and the reason why we get so nostalgic is because for those of you who don't know, Vandy and I were college roommates. Good old Fanshawe College back in London, Ontario for Vandy, Western
Yep.
University for myself. And that's where the beginnings of a fantasy football league began. And over a decade later, we're still in that fantasy football league with more or less the same people and have stayed in touch over those years. Another thing that we hope Fantasy MLR can do to kind of keep those connections alive through a sport that we all love to play. And this past season was tough, right? In our 13th rendition of this league.
Sounds about right.
Maybe a little
Yep.
bit tougher for you, Vandy, a little bit more heartbreaking for me, losing
Yep.
to your brother in the final.
Sorry,
It was a
bud.
tough one with
Sorry,
some
bud.
mistakes made. But it did beg to differ. Again, circling it back to the signing of Cash Maluia, who has football experience and is obviously playing rugby. And we had talked on this show before about Luis Rees-Zammit, who obviously made the jump from rugby to NFL. Didn't quite crack, any starting lineup, but he did join your Kansas City Chiefs there, Vandy, for a little bit
Couple
and tried to
prelims, touch
try
the
to
field.
break through, but did not be the case. But that leads to the question, though, is what NFL players and how would they do in the game of rugby? And I thought it'd be funny to bring up that question as we look back at our fantasy league that we're in and look at some of these top players and have the conversation on who these players would be in the world of rugby and what position they would play and how successful you think they would be. Now, to circle it back, Vandy, let me ask you, who is your favorite fantasy football player of all time? I think you have a nice story about this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be. I mean, it's perfect because it's also a Kansas City Chiefs player, but it's Travis Kelce. The first year I ever had him, Christmas Day, needed 25 points out of him. I said, "Hey boys, if he gets it done, I'm buying his jersey. I'm buying this jersey," and he does. 75-yard touchdown in like the second quarter. Became a Chiefs fan. Watched a bunch of Super Bowls from there. So I mean, it's pretty sweet. So
And that,
you
and
get
that in a
lucky, but
nutshell, again, I know we're a broken record, but that in a nutshell is like basically exactly what we want Fantasy MLR to do for fans out there, right? Like Vandy, then to parallel that with you being a Utah fan and loving Joel Hodgson, you know what I
was a
mean, and
Utah
how he
fan.
was able to bring you a chip this season. I mean, it's
Yeah,
very,
beautiful.
very poetic.
It is
History
beautiful.
repeats
It's full
itself.
circle. It makes you want to cry almost.
Either way, let me bring up some of the top players here, Vandy, and I want to get your opinion, obviously, as the fantasy football savant that you are, and now I guess the somewhat
I'm
of a
gonna get
fantasy
roasted for that
MLR
one.
fantasy MLR expert that you are. I want to know what you think about some of these players and how they would do in rugby, and particularly the position that they would play. So, for those of you, we do have a Fantasy Ruckers Fantasy Football League. So, I know a handful of you dabble in some other fantasy sports outside of Fantasy MLR. So, some of you may have some fun. Just let us know in the comments who you think these players and how they would do in rugby and what position they would play. Let us know. You know, be interactive with us here. We'd love to know whether or not Vandy is on track with some of these. But let's start off with the number one quarterback of the fantasy football season in our league, Vandy, and that is Josh Allen. Would you like Josh Allen's measurables? Josh Allen stands at 6'5".
Okay.
237 pounds. Okay. Obviously, he's mobile. Obviously, he can move around the field. The question is, though, can he move around the pitch? And if so, where is he doing that and what position is he doing that? If you got to put Josh Allen on your rugby team, where is Josh Allen playing?
Ooh, that's a hell of a question. I mean, that's a guy to start with. Two great measurables. Well, yeah, 6'5". How big?
6'5", 237.
237.
I'll let you think about it. Inkling for me.
Wait, I got it.
You take Semi Kunatani. Center. Okay. I was going to go this way. You take Semi Kunatani, you give me Josh Allen. I'll put him at 8-man and have him pick up the ball and go run that and try to knock down some people over. So, center would be pretty incredible too, to see him hitting a line.
Yeah, I could see him being like a thicker, Rousseau, Devon Rousseau.
Okay.
He could get it done. I think he could. I think he'd be faster. He'd lose some weight. I think he'd acclimate to it a bit. And he gets some nasty stuff done on, in football when they don't really mean to pitch it back sometimes. So
there you go. All right. So center for Vandy. I think 8-man for me here for Josh Allen. Okay. Running back. All right, Vandy. Your number one running back of the fantasy football season is Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Hold on. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. Hold on.
The number one running back isn't James Cook?
No. You are.
And the number one quarterback should probably be Matthew Stafford.
Hold on. You are right. I had to project it up there. So let's spin it around. Matt Stafford as your number one quarterback. Who's that going?
You know what? Maybe rugby fans are going to love this. I don't want him on my team in rugby. Not saying he's not tough as nails. Not saying he's not like unbelievably athletic. I just don't see him a great fit in rugby. I think he makes a hell of a quarterback, but I don't.
I mean, if I had to put on my squad, put Matt Stafford at fly half. Teach him how to kick.
Yeah.
He's basically like Joe Peterson, right? Catch the ball, pass the ball, right? Kind of like just old man can do that. All right. Now I got it straightened out. Okay, running back. All right. Your number one running back in the 2025 season was actually Christian McCaffrey.
CMC. Oh.
CMC. Where is CMC going?
Dude, he could be like a nasty scrum half.
He would. I was just gonna say that.
I think he would do some work around the scrums and everything. Yeah, you know what? Give me
Shifty,
a scrum half.
Breaking tackles.
Yeah,
basically like
and he can get
Gonzalo.
the job done. Put his head in the ball like every once in a while. Yeah, man. Give me scrum half.
All right. So we got. Let's say for you, Josh Allen at center. All right. I have Matt Stafford at fly half. And then we both got Christian McCaffrey as our 9.
Yeah.
That's pretty jokes. All right, let's go to wide receiver. Your number one wide receiver of the 2025 season was Puka Nacua. Where's Puka Nacua going? For me,
he could also be a good
Puka Nacua is on the wing.
Yeah, right? He's got to be like 11 or 14. Yeah.
Yeah, give him the ball. He's going to fly. He's got the hair for it. He's got the looks for it.
You know what? He'd be a sick 9 if CMC wasn't there. Because if it was Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd put him as a wing. And then I'd put Puka as my 9.
Okay. Puka Nacua as your 9 or as a winger. All right. Utility back there. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's go to tight end. Your number one tight end of the 2025 season was Trey McBride.
Okay. Give me like
Trey McBride.
How tall is
6'4". Okay.
6'4"?
And he weighs in at let me pull it up here. 246 pounds.
Screw it. Throw him in the front row and get through some boys. You know what I mean? Get behind him.
So just to put in context kind of this, so your average front rower's height is around 6 foot. So he's a tall front rower.
Yeah.
Tall front rower, but that's okay. Maybe, the hooker might have a little bit of trouble
He'll get
there.
it done. He'll get it done.
He'll get it done. I would like, my instinct goes like, oh, I think Trey McBride would be a fantastic lock, right? Like have him there or as like a flanker or something like that. But lock, 6'7" is your average height for that. And I think he falls a little bit short for that. And I think at 246, I mean, it's around the average weight of that, but just imagine Trey McBride in a line out, like just like throwing him up there. Just put him up. That'd be pretty
one
funny.
hands it, just comes down.
Exactly. Takes it himself to the house. All right. So Trey McBride is there. All right. Let me give you one more wild card. So you mentioned Travis Kelce. Where does Travis Kelce play? He's your favorite player. He's your fantasy football hero. We'll finish off on that note. Where is Travis Kelce going on the field?
You know what? This is gonna sound crazy, but you know what? Give me like Travis Kelce 6 years ago and screw it, put him at 15. Watch him shake and bake some dudes. I don't even care. He'll get it done. He's a huge 15. Take him down.
Slowest 15 in the league, but one that could run you over.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Oh yeah. It'll be like those YouTube videos in like high school when they give it to the massive like Samoan kid and he just blows through everybody. Like
Exactly. Well, hey, just a fun way again. Cash Maluia, the signing of obviously with that football experience, playing with the California Legion, I thought was very apropos to ask Vandy, our in-house fantasy football guru, and now fantasy MLR star student. I'll say
star student. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I won this year, so you guys couldn't get rid of me.
Yeah, there you go. Thought it'd be apropos to ask those questions here to the one and only Devin Vandy Vanderpool. Well, Vandy, appreciate it as always. Always have a lot of fun with you. And we'll make sure to circle back here. I'll let Maddie know about your fantasy football picks, and we'll see whether or not he agrees. Any messages for Maddie out west?
Nothing yet. I got nothing for him. I'll cook something up.
Nothing. Just want to go silent. 0-30 for Maddie.
Ask him how's the gray over in Cali, or if it's a lot brighter there, because it's cold as hell here.
No kidding. I know for a fact he doesn't miss that. All right. Well, hey, appreciate it again, Vandy, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
So, Maddie, no messages for you from Vandy.
That's a shame. No lake house this week.
Matt Stafford
I was left on red at the lake house.
Yeah, no kidding. You guys don't hop on the show now. You just ignore each other. You don't exist. All right. Well, he has Matt Stafford fly half. Actually, he did say, I said more fly half, and he said I don't know if I'd want him on my rugby team. But he did say CMC scrum half. I did like that. And then he did say Travis Kelce he would like at fullback. So
I would put Kelce at center. I'd put McCaffrey on the wing.
I did like the 9 comparison there. I think he'd be shifty at 9. I think I do agree.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't need to be fast to be a 9. I've lived that.
True. I guess we're
McCaffrey's
living
speed
proof.
and his. Well, to be fair, we are not living proof because we did not make it very far. But McCaffrey, you need his speed. You need his speed out in the open. 9 is not the place to do it. I would give like 9 to somebody like, I don't know, like give that a quarterback,
Yeah, no, I get it. All right. So then you be quick hitters here. Okay. So Christian McCaffrey said at wing, Puka Nacua.
Wing.
I said
actually fullback. Great hands.
Okay. Trey McBride.
Friggin' not on the team. My centers are Kelce and Darnell Washington.
Darnell Washington. I put Darnell Washington on in
put him at 8. Put him at 8.
I said I put Josh Allen at 8.
No, Josh Allen he can play center with Kelce.
Okay. That's what Vandy said. Vandy did say center. I said Trey McBride, a little bit short, but put him at lock. I'd love to see him getting lifted in that, which would be pretty funny. Either way, I thought a fun little comparison there. Brought it up because Cash Maluia, obviously having that football experience, and is obviously successful here in the MLR, signing most recently now with the California Legion after having played with the San Diego Legion last year. All right, Maddie. Well, hey, fun episode. Will Hooley, lots of signings, and of course a little bit of fantasy football, fantasy MLR crossover there. Always a good episode. Counting down the weeks the start of MLR 2026. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the people before we sign off?
Nope. Just the Dambles are going to be crazy.
Dambles are going to be crazy. I was thinking about that the other day, Maddie. I think it's going to be MLR 2026 is going to be a fun betting year. My pockets might not be saying the same thing. I did get dusted by Vandy last year, but back at it, dusting it off and taking another go at some TFR betting challenge degenerate Dambles. Either way, for Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee, and we'll see you next week. Another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
See you in the day.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.